Be quiet. If you make a sound, we both die." The husky, commanding voice echoed right beside Anna's ear. A calloused hand gripped her shoulder, pulling her into the damp darkness. She was a police officer, trained to face danger, but panic and fear still welled up. She intended to scream, but something in his cold words held her back. Just then, another dark figure darted past, a knife blade flashing a deadly streak of light. Anna's breath froze. The mysterious man had not lied. Death had just grazed past her, and the man who saved her was now holding her captive. This is where their story begins, on the fragile boundary between life and death, where trust and suspicion intertwine. Everything began with the rain. At Oakhaven Harbor, the rain wasn't just falling, it was attacking. Freezing droplets lashed the cracked asphalt, turning oil puddles into black mirrors that reflected the flickering neon lights. The air was thick with the smell of sea salt, dead fish, and rusted metal, and it suffocated Anna Parker, a police officer. For her, it was the smell of a dead end. Inside her old Ford Crown Victoria, Anna sat motionless. Nearly 2 hours had passed with the relentless downpour and the eerie static of the radio, enough to extinguish the spark in her hazel eyes. The sea serpent case was supposed to be her chance. It was her ticket out of desk duty and her way to prove to Lieutenant Miller that she wasn't some green rookie. But now, she just felt the encroaching weariness and futility. Now, she just felt like a fool sitting in a metal box in the middle of a storm. "Parker, do you copy?" Lieutenant Miller's voice, dry and impatient, crackled over the radio. "What's the situation?" "Still the same, boss. 4 suspects. 1 unmarked van. No movement yet." Anna tried to keep her voice calm and professional. "Good. Hold your position. Backup stuck in traffic due to the rain. They'll be there in 20 minutes. I repeat, observe only. Don't play the hero." "Copy that, boss," Anna replied, but a sense of unease was churning in her stomach. 20 minutes. In the world of arms dealers, 20 minutes was an eternity, and as if to prove her thought, everything began to move. One of the 4 men took out a black briefcase and placed it on a wooden crate. The others opened the back door of the van. A quick exchange took place. Nods, handshakes. "Damn it." Anna snatched the radio. "Boss, they're making the deal. They're about to escape. Hold your position, Parker. That's an order." Miller snapped, but it was too late. One of the men had already gotten into the van. The engine roared. Anna saw wads of cash being hastily stuffed into a pocket. Her opportunity, and the entire case, was slipping away. Idealism and impatience won out over discipline. A voice in her head screamed, "Do something." She switched off the radio, a rebellious act she knew she would regret later. But later was a problem for later. She opened the car door, letting the cold rain hit her face. She didn't draw her gun, just kept her hand on the grip. She wasn't planning a direct confrontation. She just needed something. A clear photo, an identifying feature, anything to save this case. She moved quickly, crouching behind rusty cargo containers. The thumping of her heart in her ears was louder than the rain. She got closer, close enough to see the snake tattoo coiling around one of the men's necks. "Bingo!" She raised her phone, trying to keep it from getting wet. That's when she felt it. A shift in the air. A feeling of being hunted. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Her honed instincts screamed at her that something was wrong. She quickly turned around, but there was nothing there. Only the night and the lifeless shadows. Maybe she was just too tense. She reassured herself and refocused on her target. A fatal mistake. The figure didn't come from behind. He was already there, hidden in a dark corner between 2 containers, a patient predator. When Anna stepped into his striking range, he lunged, fast as a panther, but before he could touch her, another phantom was quicker. That was the moment. That calloused hand had grabbed her. Its strength stunned her. She was pulled backward, a gasp caught in her throat. She was pressed against the cold wall of a container, and then those words echoed in her ear. "Be quiet. If you make a sound, we both die." As soon as the words ended, the assassin lunged. Anna's eyes widened in horror as she saw his knife blade slice through the air, right where her chest had just been. Growl. A wild, inhuman snarl tore through the night. A large, pitch-black creature shot out from the same darkness that had swallowed Anna. Shadow. The dog went straight for the assassin's leg, its sharp teeth clamping down on his calf. The man screamed in pain and crumpled to the ground. The mysterious man released Anna. "Handle him," he commanded, his voice still terrifyingly calm. Adrenaline surged through Anna's veins. She had no time for fear. She lunged forward, driving her knee hard into the face of the reeling assassin. As he fell backward, she quickly flipped him over, twisted his arms behind his back, and secured them with a pair of handcuffs. The satisfying clang of metal on metal was the sound of victory. It was over. She stood up, breathing heavily, her hair plastered to her face. The rain continued to fall as if to wash away the violence that had just occurred. "Thanks," she said, turning toward the darkness where her hero had stood. "Who are you?" But her words dissolved into the void. No one was there. The man and his dog had vanished, as silently as they had appeared. All that remained was the groaning assassin on the ground, the cold rain, and the haunting words echoing in her mind. "Be quiet." Anna stood there, in the deserted harbor, feeling a mix of gratitude, confusion, and an intense curiosity. Tonight, she had not only faced a tangible enemy, she had encountered a mystery, and she knew, with a certain intuition, that this mystery was the key to everything. Anna drove back to the precinct, her mind in a haze. The wipers worked tirelessly to clear the rain, but in her mind, the downpour had been replaced by a husky voice, a darting shadow, and the eyes of a loyal dog. The cuffed assassin sat in the back seat, but Anna no longer cared about him. She was obsessed with the man who had vanished, the anonymous hero who appeared and dissolved into the night. Who was he? Why did he help her? And how did he know about the danger beforehand? Those questions swirled in her head, louder than the siren that was growing closer. She knew, with the certain instinct of a police officer, that this captured assassin was just a pawn, and that homeless man, somehow, held the key to finding the puppet master. The next morning, Lieutenant Miller's office was like a small hurricane. He paced back and forth, his face red with fury, his hands gesturing wildly. "You disobeyed a direct order, Parker. Do you have any idea how lucky you are? If that guy hadn't slipped up, I'd be writing a report about your death right now." Anna stood at attention, taking the brunt of his rage. She had expected this. "I'm sorry, sir. I misjudged the situation." "Misjudged? You call that misjudging?" Miller slammed his hand on the desk, making the stack of files tremble. That was reckless stupidity. He stopped, exhaling sharply to regain his composure. "All right, at least you caught him." He sat down, his voice softening slightly. "But he's not talking. His lawyer is a top-tier shark. We're not getting anything from him." This was Anna's chance. "Maybe we don't need to, sir. There was a witness." Miller raised an eyebrow. "A witness? Your report doesn't mention one." "Because he wasn't a normal witness." Anna chose her words carefully. "He's the one who saved me. A man. A homeless man. And his dog." Miller stared at Anna for a moment, then let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Homeless? Parker, are you sure you weren't too rattled? It was probably just some passerby. Don't waste time on wild goose chases." "It wasn't a wild goose chase, sir," Anna insisted. "He knew the assassin was there beforehand. He saved my life. He's definitely connected." Anna's serious expression made Miller stop laughing. He looked at her, his skepticism slowly turning to curiosity. "All right," he said, leaning back in his chair. Tell me everything about your mysterious hero." But Anna knew that no matter how detailed she was, Lieutenant Miller would never fully believe her. This was a battle she would have to fight alone. "A homeless man?" Lieutenant Miller looked at Anna as if she had just reported seeing an alien. He placed both hands on his desk, his formidable frame leaning forward. "Parker," he said, his tone low, "I understand you've had a shock, but this is no time to waste. It was probably just some passerby." "It wasn't a wild goose chase, sir," Anna insisted. "He knew the assassin was there beforehand. He saved my life. He's definitely connected." Miller sighed, the sigh of a man weary of a subordinate's zeal. "Listen, you did a good job catching the assassin, but he's not talking, and his lawyer is here. Now, your job is to write a detailed, clear report. Don't add any ghost stories about mysterious heroes. Is that clear?" "Clear, sir," Anna replied, but a stubborn fire had been ignited within her. She wouldn't give up. She owed that man, and she believed he was the missing piece. Over the next 2 days, Anna became a ghost in her own precinct. After her shift, she shed her uniform for a hoodie and jeans, haunting the city's hidden corners near the harbor. She spoke to people her colleagues usually ignored, the hawkers huddled by their carts, the tired night watchmen, the people who lived in alleys where the sun never shone. A tall man with a black dog. Most of them shook their heads. But then, an old newspaper vendor with sharp eyes gave her the first glimmer of hope. "Ah, the soldier," the old man squinted. "That's what people call him. He hangs out under the highway overpass. Looks a bit rough, but he's a good man, never bothers anyone. Sometimes I give his dog a few bones. It's a smart one." The soldier. Anna's heart beat faster. She found him under the overpass, a world apart from the hustle of the city above. The constant roar of traffic formed a heavy canopy of sound. Ethan Cole sat there, leaning against a graffiti-covered concrete pillar, his eyes closed as if in meditation. His old army jacket was faded and frayed, not enough to shield his thin frame from the cold wind. The dog, Shadow, was curled at his feet, a solid black spot in the dim light. As Anna approached, Shadow lifted his head, his ears perked up, and a low, deep growl rumbled in his throat like a warning. "Hi," Anna said softly, raising her hands, palms open. "I don't mean any harm." Ethan opened his eyes. Those grey-blue eyes, deep and empty, looked at her without any emotion. It was as if she were just part of the landscape, nothing more. "I'm Anna Parker," she continued, feeling her police officer's confidence vanish. "You saved me the other night. I just wanted to." He didn't reply, just quietly ran his hand over Shadow's fur, and the growl faded. It was the only answer she got. His silence was more unsettling than a direct rejection, but Anna wasn't easily discouraged. She placed a paper bag on the ground, a safe distance away from him. "There's a grilled chicken sandwich and a bottle of water in there, for you and Shadow." With that, she backed away and left, feeling his eyes on her back. The next day, she came again. This time it was 2 hot hamburgers and a bottle of fresh milk for Shadow. She didn't try to make conversation. She just sat on a nearby concrete block, pulled out her notebook, and pretended to write. But in reality, she was watching. And then she saw it. The moment Ethan opened the burger package, and the scent of grilled meat filled the air. He broke one in half, the part with more meat and vegetables, and placed it on a clean piece of paper. Then he gave a low whistle. Shadow wagged his tail, stepped forward, and ate with gusto. Ethan just watched, a rare tenderness flickering on his hardened face. Only after Shadow had licked his lips did Ethan begin to eat his own half of the burger, slowly, as if performing a ritual. A strange warmth spread through Anna. This man, who seemed to have been abandoned by the world, still held a pure love and silent sacrifice for his only companion. He wasn't heartless. He was just hiding his heart behind a steel wall. Her persistence finally paid off. On the 4th day, as she placed the food bag down, he spoke, his voice husky as if it hadn't been used in a long time. "What do you want, officer?" Anna was startled, but quickly regained her composure. "I want the truth. I want to know why you were at the harbor that night." "Coincidence," he answered curtly. "I don't believe in coincidences," Anna said, stepping a little closer. "How did you know there was an assassin?" Ethan sighed wearily. "I heard his footsteps. Light, even, not a wasted sound. The footsteps of a predator. You walked like a fawn about to walk into a trap." His blunt words made Anna blush, but she couldn't deny the truth in them. "So I'm no one," he interrupted. "Now go." But Anna had seen an opening. She decided to take a gamble. "I'm at a dead end, Ethan. This case is bigger than I thought. I need help." She took a photo out of her pocket, a clearer image of one of Kane's henchmen, taken from a nearby security camera. "Do you recognize him?" Ethan hesitated, but then took the photo. His eyes narrowed, not at the face, but at a detail Anna had completely missed. "Don't know his name," Ethan said, pointing to the man's hand in the photo. "But he's a sniper. Look at his right index finger. There's a distinct callus. You only get that from thousands of hours of resting your finger on a rifle trigger. He's not just a goon. He's a professional." Anna was stunned. She stared at the photo, then at Ethan. "How could he?" "The soldier's eye," she whispered. Ethan didn't reply. He just handed the photo back, as if he had just pointed out a stain on her shirt. But for Anna, it was a whole new world. He had just given her a golden key. "You've also taught me how to observe," Anna said, her voice filled with admiration. "How to recognize danger from the smallest details." A faint, almost imperceptible smile crossed Ethan's lips. "First lesson, never trust appearances." Based on that clue, Anna and her team combed the database. They found him. A former Marine, discharged for psychological reasons, connected to several mercenary operations abroad. From him, they traced a shell company specializing in importing marine equipment. The enemy's lair was now revealed. She went back to find Ethan, unable to hide her excitement. "You were right. We found him. Thank you, Ethan." This time, Ethan looked at her longer, with a hint of what looked like surprise in his eyes. Perhaps it had been a long time since anyone had come back to thank him. "But the leader is still at large," Anna said, her excitement fading. "We only know his nickname is Kane." That name, it was like a stone thrown into a still pond. Anna saw it clearly, a slight twitch in Ethan's jaw. His eyes darkened, becoming deep and cold. The wall he had just opened slammed shut, more solid than before. "You know that name, don't you?" Anna asked, her voice almost a whisper. Ethan turned his face away, staring at the cars rushing by overhead. "No. Just a name." But the sudden change in his demeanor was more telling than a confession. He was lying, and Anna knew, with a certain instinct, that the truth about Travis Kane was also the truth about Ethan Cole. That night, in the quiet office, Anna crossed a line. She accessed the military archives, an act that could cost her her job. She typed Travis Kane. A series of results appeared. A brilliant military career, medals, commendations, a hero. But Anna didn't stop. She began to search deeper into the sealed mission reports. And in a report about a failed mission in the Middle East 10 years ago, she found it. The roster of a special forces team. And there, among the unfamiliar names, was a photo and a name she would never forget. A young soldier, with a stern face, but eyes already etched with the pain and weariness of war. Staff Sergeant Ethan Cole. Anna leaned back in her chair, a cold feeling running down her spine. All the pieces fell into place, forming a terrifying picture. Ethan wasn't just a homeless man. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a witness, a living ghost from the past of the very enemy she was hunting, and she had just pulled that ghost out of hiding. The old, black and white, slightly yellowed ID photo on the computer screen was like a ghost from the past. A younger Staff Sergeant Ethan Cole, his face not yet etched with the hardship of 10 years on the streets, but his eyes were the same deep grey blue, holding something far beyond his age, the weariness of a soldier who had seen too much. Anna shivered, not from the cold of the office at midnight, but from the chilling truth that was slowly unfolding before her. Travis Kane, military hero, successful businessman, and Ethan Cole, his subordinate soldier, now a homeless man, two brutally opposite life paths. This couldn't be a coincidence. She printed the photo, carefully tucking it into her jacket pocket. Tomorrow, she would face him. The silence had to be broken. The sky the next morning was grey, heralding an upcoming rain. Just like Anna's mood, she found Ethan in the same spot, sharing a meager breakfast with Shadow. The dog wagged its tail when it saw her, but Ethan just looked up at her, his gaze showing no surprise, as if he knew she would come sooner or later with a different purpose. Anna didn't beat around the bush. She crouched down in front of him. The distance between them was no longer one of caution, but the tension of a truth about to be revealed. Travis Kane, she said, her voice low and clear. He was your old commander, wasn't he? Ethan's body stiffened. The hand stroking Shadow froze. He looked up, his grey-blue eyes piercing into hers, no longer tired but a cold, icy wall. You've been investigating me. His voice wasn't a question but an accusation. I had to, Ethan, Anna replied, unflinching. I need to know the truth. What happened in Kandahar 10 years ago? What turned a decorated staff sergeant into this? She paused, not wanting her words to cause him more pain. The defensive wall Ethan had built with pain, silence, and time over a decade began to crack. He was silent for a long moment, the roar of the cars overhead sounding like the echo of old battles. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse with emotions he had tried to bury for so long. We were ambushed, he began, his eyes fixed on a distant, empty space. In the Arghandab Valley, a perfect trap. We shouldn't have survived. He swallowed hard, memories flooding back like a tidal wave. But it wasn't a Taliban ambush. It was a cleanup. Kane, that bastard. As he sold us out, Anna held her breath, listening to every word, feeling their weight. He made a deal with a local arms dealer, Ethan continued, his voice trembling with hatred. He provided the coordinates, the schedule, everything about us. In return, he got a shipment of Stinger missiles he could sell on the black market. He wanted the whole team dead, so there would be no witnesses. Tears, which Anna had never seen on this man, began to stream down his haggard face. I saw everyone fall. Jackson, who was about to have his first child. Martinez, a kid who was just 20. My brothers. He left us there to die like dogs. What about you? Anna asked, her voice almost a whisper. I was lucky, he said, but his voice held no luck. An RPG blast threw me into a crevice. I was unconscious. When I woke up, it was over. I was the only one breathing. He looked at his calloused hands. I crawled through the desert for 3 days, with only a canteen of water and the image of them dying in my head. Silence settled between them, heavy and painful. Why didn't you report it? Anna asked, the question she had been wrestling with all night. Why did you stay silent? Ethan let out a bitter, broken laugh. He looked her straight in the eye. You think I didn't try? As soon as I was rescued, I reported everything. But Kane was one step ahead of me. He'd spun a perfect story, that I was psychologically shocked after the battle, PTSD, that I was paranoid, that I was the one who misread the map, leading the whole team into the ambush. He had medals, reputation, powerful connections. Me? I was just a damaged grunt. Who would believe a ghost? He took a deep breath, his voice now, a fractured whisper. And then, when I didn't give up, He started making threats. He sent me a photo. Jackson's wife and newborn daughter. He said if I ever opened my mouth again, he'd make their lives, and the families of the others, a living hell. Ethan closed his eyes, as if to ward off the image. Be quiet. Wasn't just a warning that night, Anna. It's the silence I've had to keep for 10 years to protect them. It's my burden, my curse. Anna felt a wave of indignation and pity surge in her chest. His silence wasn't cowardice, it was an act of the highest sacrifice. She stepped forward, no longer hesitant, and placed a hand on his shoulder, a gentle, understanding squeeze. You don't have to carry it alone anymore, she said, her voice filled with determination. We're going to make him pay, I promise. But Cain, that venomous snake, was always one step ahead. Anna's investigation, despite her attempts to keep it secret, had been leaked. The next morning, Mark Jennings, the veteran detective Anna had always looked up to as a mentor and an older brother, called her into his office. Got a hot tip, Anna, Mark said, his face serious but his eyes gleaming with excitement. Our source just called. Tonight, Cain is making a huge deal at warehouse number 7 at the harbor. He'll be there in person. This is our only chance to take down the whole operation. Anna's heart pounded. Is backup going to be there? Of course, Mark reassured, patting her shoulder. I've arranged for the SWAT team, but we have to go in first to confirm and plant the listening device. Just the two of us. Quick and clean. You ready, kiddo? I'm ready, Anna replied, without a moment's hesitation. Her trust in Mark was absolute. That night, darkness fell over the harbor once again. But this time, Anna wasn't alone. She and Mark moved professionally between the cargo containers, heading toward warehouse number 7. Strange, Anna whispered, drawing her gun. No guards, no movement. Maybe we're early, Mark replied, but there was something off about his voice. They pushed the heavy metal door of the warehouse open. It was pitch black inside. Mark, Anna called out, feeling a cold shiver run down her spine. Click. The fluorescent lights on the ceiling suddenly flickered on, blinding and cold. Anna squinted. As her eyes adjusted, she saw him. Travis Cain stood in the middle of the warehouse, a smug smile on his face. But it wasn't Cain who made her stomach clench. It was the man standing beside him, the one pointing his pistol directly at her head. Mark Jennings. Mark, why? Anna whispered, her voice cracking. The feeling of betrayal was more painful than any bullet. Money, kid, Mark shrugged, his face devoid of remorse. Cain pays a lot better than a cop's measly salary. Besides, I've always hated your naive idealism. Welcome, officer, Cain said, stepping forward, his footsteps echoing in the silent space. I have to admit, you've caused me quite a bit of trouble, especially when you dug up my old ghost. He stopped in front of Anna, his eyes as cold as steel. I warned him to stay silent. He glanced at Mark. Handle her, but make it look like an accident. I don't want any more trouble. The betrayal pushed Anna to the edge. She was disarmed, tied to a cold chair. Her only hope, a faint and distant glimmer, was no longer the police force. It was a ghost from the past. Ethan knew something was wrong. The feeling crept into him like a poison wind. It started with an unexplainable unease when Anna didn't call him as she'd promised. Then it grew into a familiar, gnawing anxiety. It was the same feeling he'd had on that fateful night in Kandahar. The feeling when the desert's silence became too perfect, signaling a deadly trap. He couldn't sit still under the overpass. Shadow also sensed his master's unrest. The dog paced around him, whimpering softly. I know, buddy, Ethan whispered, ruffling the dog's fur. Something's not right. He couldn't wait any longer. He couldn't let the past repeat itself. Not this time. Not with her. Anna was the only person in 10 years who had seen the real him, not a vagrant, not a ghost, but a soldier. He owed her. Let's go. Shadow. He stood up, his eyes determined. We're going to find her. He didn't know where to go, but the combat instinct ingrained in his very being told him to return to where it all began, the place that held the most secrets and the most danger, the harbor. In warehouse number 7, the air was thick with the scent of fear and gunpowder about to ignite. Anna was bound tightly to a cold metal chair, the ropes biting into her skin, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the bitterness of betrayal. Mark, a man she once respected, now stood there, his face as cold as a stranger's. Travis Cain was savoring his victory. He circled Anna like a shark, his tone condescending and full of contempt. You see, officer, your idealism, your justice, it's all just empty words. In this world, only power and money are the truth. He stopped, bending down, his expensive whiskey-scented breath hot on her face. And as for your homeless friend, my old ghost, I'll find him. I'll personally send him back to the desert dust. There'll be no luck this time. Crash. The metal warehouse door was hit with an immense force, bursting off its hinges and collapsing onto the floor with a terrifying noise. Ethan stood there, in the doorway, his silhouette framed against the stormy night sky. He had no gun, no armor. In his hand was only a long iron bar he'd picked up on the way, but the way he held it, his stance, made it a formidable weapon. His eyes blazed with a vengeful fire, focused on a single target, Travis Kane. Beside him, Shadow growled, baring his white fangs, ready to fight. Kane took a second to compose himself. Then he laughed, an arrogant, mocking sound. Well, look who it island. The savior has come, still as gutsy as ever, Cole. Or should I say, still as stupid. Before plunging into the battle, before everything descended into chaos, Ethan looked directly into Anna's eyes. Amidst her fear and despair, she saw a clear message in his gaze. He mouthed the words, unspoken, but they echoed in her mind louder than a gunshot. Be quiet. If you make a sound, we both die. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was a tactical command, a promise of trust. Anna understood. She had to believe in him. She held her breath, nodding almost imperceptibly. And then, hell broke loose. Kill them, Kane shouted. Ethan didn't wait. He moved, not like a normal person, but like a phantom. Agile, efficient, and lethal. The first thug rushed forward, swinging a baseball bat. Ethan sidestepped, the iron bar in his hand arcing in a perfect curve, striking the man's knee. The sound of breaking bone was a sickening crack. The man collapsed, screaming in agony. Shadow was also in motion. He lunged at the second man, a wild beast unleashed. His ferocity made even these professional thugs falter. Mark pointed his gun at Ethan, yelling, "Freeze, Cole!" But Anna acted. With a superhuman effort, she put all her strength into her legs, kicking the chair and toppling it backward. The loud crash and sudden chaos grabbed Mark's attention for a split second. That split second was all Ethan needed. He lunged forward like a whirlwind, the iron bar striking Mark's wrist. The gun flew out of his hand, an elbow to the face, and the crooked cop fell to the floor, unconscious. Now, only the two of them remained in the warehouse. Two soldiers, two mortal enemies. "You're just a ghost, Cole," Kane snarled, drawing a shiny Sig Sauer pistol, his eyes glinting with malice. "A filthy tramp who died 10 years ago in the desert. You should have stayed at the bottom of the food chain. This is for Jackson, for Martinez, for my brothers." Ethan roared, the pain of 10 years condensed into a single cry, and he charged. Bang! The gunshot was deafening, tearing through the silence. A searing pain pierced through Ethan's left shoulder. The impact of the bullet made him stagger, but he didn't fall. This physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional pain he had carried for a decade. He gritted his teeth, using the pain to propel himself forward, and slammed directly into Kane. They both fell onto the cold concrete floor. The iron bar flew away. Kane's gun also slid from his hand. This was no longer a battle of weapons. This was a fight between two men. They wrestled, punched, and kicked, brutally and primitively. Kane was bigger, stronger, but Ethan fought with the frenzy of a man who had nothing left to lose, with a strength that came from a decade of pent-up rage and pain. "You had everything, Kane," Ethan screamed, a punch landing squarely on Kane's face, drawing blood. "Why? Why did you betray us? Everything?" Kane sneered, returning the blow with a knee to Ethan's stomach. "I deserved more than that, more than a grunt like you. You were all just pawns on my chessboard." Those words were a lash to Ethan's soul. He roared, not like a human, but like a wounded animal. With one final burst of strength, he flipped over, pinning Kane down, and swung his fist. One punch, two punches, three punches. Blood splattered. Finally, Kane lay motionless. Ethan got up, staggering and gasping for breath. He picked up the iron bar, raising it high, ready to end the man who had destroyed his life, to finish the monster who haunted his every dream. Their eyes met. In Kane's swollen eyes, Ethan saw no fear. He only saw hatred. Kill him, and that hatred would be the last thing that connected them forever. But then, he saw Anna, still lying on the floor, her eyes filled with trust, and he knew he couldn't. Killing Kane would turn him into someone just like him, and he had fought for too long not to become a monster. He lowered the iron bar, throwing it aside. He collapsed beside Kane, exhausted. His battle was over. "Anna," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Make the call." Seizing that precious moment, Anna, who had managed to free herself, grabbed the discarded radio. Her voice was shaky but clear. "All units, listen up. Shots fired at Warehouse 7, Oakhaven Harbor, requesting immediate backup. Officer down. Suspect is neutralized." Minutes later, the wail of sirens tore through the night, growing closer. The flashing red and blue lights of a dozen police cars swept across the faces in the warehouse, illuminating the full truth. Kane's conspiracy, built on betrayal and blood, was completely exposed in the light of justice. The smell of antiseptic, that was the first thing Ethan smelled when he woke up. A clean, sterile scent, so different from the musty smell of the overpass or the metallic scent of blood from the warehouse. He blinked, trying to get used to the soft white light from the ceiling. He was lying on a soft bed, the sheets pristine and white. His left shoulder was carefully bandaged, a dull but bearable pain. He wasn't alone. Anna Parker was asleep in a chair beside the bed, her head resting on the bed rail, her messy brown hair covering part of her face. She was still wearing the clothes from the night before, stained with dirt, but she looked strangely peaceful. Even in her sleep, one of her hands was loosely holding the edge of his blanket, as if afraid he would disappear again. A strange, warm feeling he hadn't felt in 10 years crept into his chest. For the first time in a decade, he didn't wake up alone. He stirred slightly, and Anna immediately woke up. Her eyes widened, at first with sleepiness, then with overwhelming relief and joy when she saw that he was awake. "Ethan, how are you feeling?" she asked, her voice hoarse with fatigue. "The doctor said the bullet was removed. You're going to be okay." "You." Ethan's voice was dry. "You should go home and rest." Anna shook her head, a small smile on her lips. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm the one who brought you here. I have to make sure you get out of here safe." In the following days, the hospital became their world. Anna was with him almost constantly, bringing him food and telling him the news from the outside. Travis Kane and his entire crew, including Mark Jennings, had been arrested. Anna's testimony, along with the irrefutable evidence at the scene and the subsequent confessions of a few of the thugs, built a solid case. The press called Ethan the homeless hero. High-ranking police officials came to visit, bringing praise and a shiny medal of valor. They placed it on the table next to his bed, but Ethan only looked at it with indifference. "I'm not a hero," he said to Lieutenant Miller when he visited. "The real heroes are buried in the sand in Kandahar. I'm just a soldier who completed his last mission." He refused the medal. He refused all interviews. He just wanted silence. But this time, it was a peaceful silence, not the silence of fear. After he was discharged, Anna kept her promise. She didn't abandon him. She used her own savings to rent a small room for him in a clean motel. She brought Shadow, who had been temporarily cared for by her colleagues, back to him. Their reunion was one of the happiest moments Anna had ever witnessed. But Anna knew a room couldn't heal the scars on his soul. Ethan needed more. He needed a purpose, a community. He needed people who understood what he had been through. A few months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Anna drove Ethan to the city's outskirts. The car stopped in front of an old red brick building, situated in a large campus with old oak trees and green lawns. The wooden sign read, "Oakhaven Veterans Support Center, a home for heroes." Ethan looked out the window, silent. He was much tidier now. His long hair was cut short, his beard cleanly shaven, revealing a chiseled face and eyes that, though still tinged with sadness, held a new light. He was wearing the shirt and jeans Anna had bought for him. He was no longer a ghost under the overpass. "I think this place could help you," Anna said softly, a hint of worry in her voice. "There are people here just like you. They understand." Shadow, sitting in the back, seemed to sense the solemnity of the moment. He whimpered softly and rested his muzzle on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan said nothing. He opened the car door and stepped out. He took a deep breath, the crisp autumn air filling his lungs. He looked at the building, at the other veterans walking on the campus. A few sat on benches, talking, laughing. They, too, carried scars, visible and invisible. But they weren't alone. He turned back to look at Anna, who had stepped out to stand beside him. They stood there, in front of the center's large wooden door, on the threshold of a new chapter in his life. The warm morning sun shone on their faces. Anna looked at Ethan, a gentle, understanding smile on her lips. She softly repeated the central phrase, the one that had started it all, the one that had saved her life, the one that had defined his pain. But now, she gave it a completely new meaning. "Be quiet." She paused for a moment, her eyes sparkling with hope and trust. "But this time, so we can live." The phrase that had once symbolized pain, suppression, and a decade-long curse had now become a promise of healing, a promise of a peaceful future, where he no longer had to run from the past. Ethan looked at her, his gray-blue eyes filled with an emotion Anna had never seen before. Not pain, not weariness, but profound gratitude. And then, for the first time since Anna met him, for the first time after 10 years of silent darkness, a genuine, warm, and sincere smile appeared on his lips. He nodded slightly, a firm nod. They walked together through the door, toward the light. Shadow happily followed behind, his tail wagging non-stop, as if he also knew that, finally, his master had found his way home.